Yeah. Man, I feel bad though with Ano. It's like they kept giving him smaller budgets per movie,
Yes.
and I'm like, oh
I
god.
don't so
I'm
I don't think that's entirely his fault.
no, I'm not blaming him. That's what I'm saying. It's like whoever the studios were, like kept
Yeah,
axing it per project of the Shin
I was gonna
movies.
say, well, because each property is owned by different companies, right? So
Oh,
like,
man, each company only had so much to shell out, and
exactly. I mean, obviously, Shin Godzilla is Toho.
yeah, they're fucking.
Toho has all the fucking money to spare in the world, right?
Mhm.
Um, so he could get a good budget on that. Ultraman is Subaraya Productions. Not terrible, but like they've gone bankrupt in the past and in the very
Whoops.
recent past.
Yeah.
So while they're able to, they have they have decent money, it's not Toho money. And then Kamen Rider is Toei, and they're just like Toei is just not. They're not Subaraya, and they're sure as hell not Toho.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, oh yeah, only so much money could be shelled
Yeah.
out, and you can see this just from the other projects they do, right? Like obviously Toho, anything Godzilla is just fucking gorgeous. It's
Oh
fucking
yeah.
great,
Yeah. Then you see
solid
fucking
production
-1, and
values.
it's just like holy.
Yeah, and then you see anything like Ultraman, and it's like okay, this is like they've definitely gotten better over the years.
Oh yeah.
Um, since the last time they went, forget when they just went absolutely bankrupt. But it was sometime. It's sometime.
Yeah.
But they've rebounded. They have a lot more money. They have their effects are a lot better, even if it's still like I always say, well, yeah, actually, their effects are good enough to the point where they're able to kind of catch up. They're honestly able to do better than like recent like fucking Marvel,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
which not like that's a high bench, but still for a Japanese studio. And then you watch anything Toei, you watch any of the newer Kamen Rider shows, and you're like, okay, like again, not terrible, but this is clearly like TV production,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
clearly it ain't all that. So I forgive it. It's not. It was. I feel like it was always going to be the case that Godzilla gets more money than Ultraman, gets more
Yeah.
money than Kamen Rider. It was just natural outcome of.
And I think it's like the challenge too of you can make a big monster wander around a city uh, cheaper than like anime-esque fight scenes with real quote unquote people, and it's just like it's like, oh, of course it's gonna look a little more jank when it's like, oh, I can tell that's not a person. It's like,
Yeah, but
you
it's like,
know,
all right, these are PS3 cutscenes.
yeah.
Like, let's be real
Yes, no,
here. Let's be so real here. Which that's the kind of shit like Marvel's doing. So I can't even
oh,
shit. Like,
exactly,
at this point, the West actually just cannot shit on these effects.
no,
Like, fuck, dude. I remember fucking when Black Panther came out, and it just looked like such
it
dog
was so
shit,
bad,
dude.
it was
The
so
fights were
bad.
so fake.
Yeah, it was
Like,
abysmal, and everyone, made its gorillion dollars, and you know, and
exactly.
I'm just
Yeah.
like,
So like
mm,
the West cannot complain about effects like that. Like
no,
we chugged down fucking Schlock Panther, even though it's not a good movie. It sucks.
no, exactly. And
It's
then,
bad. It's so weird seeing people like I know why, right? Because
oh, of
the
course,
committee, right? But it's like
yes,
it's like any time before like 2014 everyone would have rightfully shit on that movie, and then they got brainwashed by Shocker, so now they fucking slobber it. Gonna start doing that from now on. I'm gonna start referring to the committee as Shocker.
yes, no,
Um,
that's immediately what came to mind last night when I was watching that. It's like, oh shit, Shocker and Anti-Shocker, amazing. Yeah, there's another. There, boom, there it goes on
boom.
the compass.
Edit that too. Yep, yep. There, yeah, exactly. Let's go to the committee compass. Shocker, real.
Where
It's
you
so
on
real,
the
dude.
axes there. Yeah. Oh my god.
But yeah, that was a solid movie. I thought even though I'm not like obviously of the three, I'm definitely the least familiar with Kamen Rider.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
like same with myself. But after watching that, I'm like, damn, they were cooking. They were,
no, yeah, they cooked.
you know.
And from what little I do know about Kamen Rider from like otaku culture osmosis, like it was a pretty faithful, loving kind of send off to Kamen Rider, which to be expected from Anno, right? Because he's like the otaku, right? He was
Yes.
like one of the first otakus. There's literally like video footage of him, from like the 90s. When he's like a fucking grown ass man doing Kamen Rider poses and shit, being interviewed for Ava shit.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like, yeah, that's my goat.
man.
Speaking of
And
Ava, I like the ties to Ava as well. How fucking what's his name, Butterfly Boy's plan was basically just human instrumentality.
yeah, it really was. It was just there's so much connection between stuff. Like it was funny too because I wrote down little lines from at least the Ultraman one, and I'm like, oh shit, that like there's people saying like the same stuff, and they also end vaguely similarly, which I thought was interesting. At least with
I
Ultraman
was
and
gonna
Kamen
say,
Rider, I was like, oh, those are
I was
like,
just,
yeah, I think they get almost asked the exact same type of questions. Like, oh, you're gonna give your life up for humanity, and it's like, yep. Literally,
yeah,
both of them are like, yep.
they literally just feel like, yeah, you wouldn't cringe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's still obviously it's different because in Shin Godzilla, Godzilla is the primary antagonist, and it's just people dealing with him. But
yeah.
I think in a sense it ends similarly too, minus that weird little bit with the tail. But
Yeah. You're just gonna drop that on us and never ever follow up on
yeah,
it, you know?
but 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 I think that's kind of the point. Now that
Mhm.
I've watched all three, it's clear to me that I mean, in a way, even though it obviously that's way more crazy than how any of the others end, but in a way they end similarly because like Shocker's not defeated at the end of Kamen Rider, right? Like
No,
they're still
there's
out there. He's still got to like he still has to go fight them. They're still out there. They're coming out with crazy new Ogs. Um, the end of Shin Ultraman, like it all but outright says, yeah, there's still kaiju, there's still aliens out there. The other, members of the Ultraman species are out there. They're still gonna want to destroy humanity. Like
yeah.
the 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 threat is never actually gotten rid of. It's not actually ultimately defeated. Like the whole point is that the fight kind of has to go on.
Yes, this is layer one. We've been rambling without doing an intro. Hello, we're back. Give
Yeah,
us,
we've been at this enough that we don't gotta do intros
you
anymore.
know,
It's layer
it's
one.
you've
You
seen the
clicked on the
thumbnail
video.
and shit. We'll just get into it. Whatever. We no
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
little secret preamble. Now we're in it. We're there. But yeah,
Yeah. We're balls deep in it.
yes. But yeah, no, like all three, it's like a whole thing of like entity of some sort causes people to be like, hey, humanity has to like, you know, rally and fight the anti-life forces. It's like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, at the end with at least common right, well, all three of them, they're dead, spoiler in a way, and then the people
Yeah.
have to like carry on the torch. I mean, Common Riders was a little different because there's a second Common Rider,
Yeah.
which was a fun touch. It was nice. It's like, oh, we're in the one movie we already get the little legacy character. Just takes up the
Yeah, yeah,
mantle,
we
and he's like,
already
yep,
get
you'll
yeah,
carry
he
on the
quite literally
fight.
takes up the mantle of Kamen Rider. Yeah. He'll keep up the fight against Shocker. Like yeah, which is it's a nice I think in that way Um, because I was gonna say they all end off in these kind of hopeful ways. They have these hopeful endings, even though the threat's still out there. Shin Godzilla has, like, okay, Godzilla has been stopped. He's been frozen, but with the end with the tail and the other little mini humanoid Godzillas coming off of it, frozen in place, shows that, like, okay, the threat may still be there, and they have this conversation about how they kind of just have to keep being vigilant, right? Like,
Yeah.
and have faith that they and those who come after them can deal with with the threat of Godzilla or what else may come from it.
Yeah, and
Um,
it sets up the infrastructure too. Like the group to deal with such a thing gets, they get their
yeah,
first go at fighting a kaiju, and they're like, okay, we got a institution now for dealing with such things if they're to
yeah,
happen again in the future. Which, under the implication, I would assume other kaiju would appear at some point in that universe if it were to continue. Like, or the one of the who knows, maybe one of those little humanoid Godzillas got away. We don't know. Like he could have just scurried off and is
yeah. No idea.
yeah, hard to say. And then with Ultraman again, that group got put together after Ultraman's arrival, and they know shit. They're like, okay,
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I think one of the main things with the Shin series is that it always focuses on kind of the power of humanity, which is why I think it's fitting that in Shin Ultraman, Ultraman is he's just dead, right? He's just
yes, yeah,
gone, right? Because that's his power isn't the power of humanity. He's an alien.
mhm,
He's this almost godlike being from beyond the stars. That's not humanity's power, so it wouldn't be right, I feel, to end with him still being there, alive in that, because it's all about humanity being able to deal with these threats themselves, like at the end of Shin Godzilla, and ultimately like at the end of Shin Kamen Rider, uh, because ultimately, while yeah, there is a new Kamen Rider, um, that that power was it's humanity's power. It was power created by humans, right? Through
yes,
our scientific technology and advancements. Even if it was created by evil people for evil reasons, um, like that doesn't mean that it can't be used for good, which is what Kamen Rider does. And I like the connection in Shin Kamen Rider that it makes to the writer abilities of the augments and guns, right? Um,
mhm.
very 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 based pro gun message of you, Anno. Um, because yeah, that's basically what he's saying. He is saying, like, it's not. He literally is pulling, bro. Literally pulled, like, literally the message of Kamen Rider is guns don't kill people, people kill people. It's literally what he's saying with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's the first Kamen Rider's whole hang up, right, is that his father was a police officer who died because he wasn't willing to, use his gun, to pull out his gun and use it. So he ended up getting shot by the criminal, he was dealing with,
Mhm.
and dying. And so, Kamen Rider is like, I want to be as kind and compassionate as my father, but I also want to find the will to use this power, for good, because it's not an inherently, because he struggles from the beginning with
Mhm.
his power, right? He's like,
Yes.
this is wrong, this is fucked up. I can literally punch people to death. Yeah, that's scary, but that doesn't mean it's wrong, right? You know,
Yeah.
that power can and should be used for good, because as is made clear throughout the whole movie, right? If he doesn't use it for good, Shocker is going to use it for evil,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
Him not using it for good is not going to stop people from using it for evil, but him using it for good can stop people from using it for evil. Um, So based. That's
Yes. Yes, incredibly.
it's as simple as that. As simple as that. Um, yeah. But yeah, so ultimately I think it ends off in they all end up in these hopeful ways with hopeful messages, despite how kind of grim they can be at times. Um
Yeah.
I was gonna say the whole Shin series really feels a lot like um like what DC wanted to do with their movies, but like good, right?
Right, yeah.
Like it really felt like what Zack Snyder was trying to do, but like he did it well, right? Like a kind of up to date, modern day interpretation of these classic characters,
Yeah, and
um,
dealing with
but done,
modern issues, you know.
yeah, dealing, yeah, exactly, dealing with modern issues, dealing with kind of being more realistic, more kind of grim, more down and dirty. But unlike where DC and Zack Snyder just absolutely dropped the ball because they thought you had to make the characters, like the essence of their character, grim and gritty. Anno understands that what's appealing about these characters is that deep down they're still kind of hopeful, idealistic. At least in the case of Ultraman and Kamen Rider, obviously
Yeah.
Godzilla, you could get away with just making him a complete monster because that's how he started off,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah,
He
it's
wasn't always
just
this kind of heroic figure. His first movie, he's literally just this monster. Um, literal metaphor for the atomic bomb and
yeah, and then with
radiation, Second World War, all that jazz.
yeah, and you could see that with the Shin movies, there's a bit of messaging in there about various things, like with the Shin Godzilla one, it's environmentalism, and the it was born out of the end, like the Japan earthquake, of
I was
like
gonna say, I think
the
it's
bureaucratic
less.
red tape and like all this shit that could
Yeah,
like
it's more about that.
yeah, like
How
yeah,
Japan dropped the ball
yeah,
with
exactly, with
Fukushima.
exactly, yeah, like allowing these environmental disasters, and just like, oh, the government's too busy doing whatever the fuck they do, nothing.
To actually solve anything, to
Fighting in
actually do something.
boardrooms about
Yeah,
nonsense to do anything.
yeah, and
And
it's ultimately the outcasts, the kind of losers who come together, who don't give a shit about the red tape, who just do whatever the fuck they feel
yeah,
is right to save the day, who end up saving the day because they
and
don't care about the red tape or any
yeah,
of that.
exactly. And similarly with the SSSP in Ultraman, with
Yes.
the government is clearly shown to just kneel down to like the aliens when they show up, and they're like, hey, you know I'll make all this stuff easy for you, just just answer to me or whatever. And SSSP is just like, now we gotta do Ultraman's, like, you know wishes even when he's not around or kidnapped and shit. It's like, oh, we gotta keep going. We gotta go against all this
Yeah.
crap that's
They
going
they
on.
yeah, they understand that, like, of the various different aliens compared to Ultraman is just kind of, he's just saving people. He doesn't want anything out of it like the other aliens do. And so the SSSP is able to understand that, like, okay, like, giving in to their demands is basically just enslaving humanity to these aliens, right?
Yeah,
And that's again, it's another very, very based, very solid message, right? Which is that, classic, um, he who gives up freedom for security deserves neither type shit. Because yeah, what's the point? What's the point of being safe from kaiju and other aliens if you're enslaved,
yeah,
enslaved basically to an extra dimensional empire or whatever the fuck
yeah,
aliens.
yeah, exactly. And then with Kamen Rider, similarly, with the people who betray Shocker, and also align with the shady government entities who are actually on humanity's side. You know,
Yeah, I was gonna say Kamen Rider shakes it up a bit because Shocker are human enemies, augmented
Yes.
enemies, but still ultimately human. As opposed to the prior two entries where the threats were kaiju, extraterrestrial. And this one it's just humans. It's
Yeah.
humans themselves experimenting, creating these
Yeah.
augmented
Particularly
beings.
transhumanist humans. It's a very anti-transhumanism thing.
I was gonna say it's
In the uploading the
yeah.
consciousnesses to
I was
the
gonna say yeah. It is because I was gonna say that's what makes Shocker interesting as a villain in this, in the wider scheme of the Shin series. Because like at least on paper, what Shocker wants isn't bad, right? The goal of the AI that
Mhm.
runs Shocker is the happiness of all mankind.
Yes. Hence the acronym of Shocker being Sustainable Happiness Organization with Computational Knowledge Embedded Remodeling. What a
Yeah, yeah,
fucking
crazy, insane, wild fucking name. But yeah, like that ultimately it is kind of like it's algorithm maxing happiness, and of course
yes.
that doesn't work because one, for some reason it just happened to choose like a bunch of psychos to to start with,
Yeah.
whose ideas of like, but ultimately it goes to show that like people's ideas of happiness are different and incompatible, right? um like so you can't make all of mankind happy because a lot of people's ideas of happiness are actually really fucked up.
Yes, as we see
They're
with
actually really screwed.
so the first enemy he fights is the spider Og. There wasn't much to him. He just fought him like he didn't, he was just like, I'll show you my happiness. The whatever. He's the insane guy
Yeah,
hunting him down. But it kind of kicks off when he goes to fight the Bat Og because he's the one who starts spouting his like ideology. His whole like epidemics are beautiful. We need to cull the human population and keep it to a minimum. Very, very incredibly committee. Just Georgia Guidestone shit.
very
Just straight up
type
says
shit.
it. He
Yeah,
just says it.
he
It's
just
just like,
says it.
the few remaining people we will be much happier once we've killed all these people in a pandemic. And it's like, oh, wow, that's
It's
okay,
yeah,
interesting.
that's a bit okay, buddy.
And he's a
Yeah.
bat, interestingly on the nose. What do they mean by this?
What? Yeah. What? Anno, what were you cooking? um. No. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. They're all very all the shocker agents, the higher ups that they fight are yeah. They're just fucking weird, dude. They're
Yeah,
just fucking psychos.
yeah, it's kind of,
The wasp one, who her whole deal was that
oh yeah, make everyone into an
it's like, oh yeah,
enslaved hive mind. They'll,
yeah, that'll make everyone happy.
yeah, they
Like
don't have to
what?
think for themselves ever again. Again, other MIDI doctrine. Uh,
Yeah, it's all very committee type
you
shit, which
know,
is why we're gonna
some
start
there's
calling them
some like,
Shocker from
there's
now on.
the odd like throwaway villains were just there for to advance the plot. Didn't really have any sort of
Yeah, like kind of
ideology
like
or
you
anything.
mentioned, the Spider Og, where it's like, yeah, killing people makes me happy. It's
It's
like,
like,
oh,
okay, all right,
okay,
great
dude.
start. And then, oh man,
I love
I
killing
thought it was so
people.
funny with the Scorpion Og,
Oh,
where like I was like,
Scorpion.
ooh,
Yeah, yeah.
another crazy villain, and then the glowies just ice her. Like, they just take her
It's
out.
just
Like off screen, they just murder her and like harvest
yeah,
her
it's awesome.
abilities,
The
and I'm just
fucking
like, whoa.
Venom.
It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, Kamen Rider, we didn't need you. We took care of it. It's like, what the
yeah,
fuck?
we got this. It's like, oh,
Okay.
so you could have just done that. You could have just been doing this the whole time.
I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, just send in a Black Ops team to take this one out. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So they're at
it's like,
least
oh,
somewhat competent, At least they know how to do some shit, I guess.
yeah, yeah, they're capable. It's like,
Reliable
okay,
allies for once,
the
despite them
government could do things this
glowing.
time. Yeah, yeah. You're like, yeah, exactly. That's the thing too. It's like, okay, wait. So you have the ability to do this. You've clearly known about Shocker for like a while, and you just didn't do anything up until this point. Okay, that's kind of interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
Um.
And then we have, and then there again the other one, the Mantis Chameleon one, who is just again
Oh yeah, he just wanted
crazy.
revenge.
You know, yeah, just
Yeah.
revenge for Spider. Everyone loved
Spider.
Spider so much. I guess he must have been a great
To be fair,
guy
he had a
back at the
really sick.
office. You know?
He had
Oh, it
a
was
really
great.
sick design.
Oh, it
I
was
think his
super
was
good.
probably my favorite of the Shocker agents, which was why I was kind of sad that he got iced so quick. I was like, nah, Spider's so good.
Sorry, the budget for the arms coming out of the zippers and the jacket was too much. I'm sorry, we can't do that. They kill him instant.
Yeah, tragic. Um, who else was there? I already mentioned Wasp.
Yeah, and then he fought Kamen Rider 2.
Oh
And
yeah, because he was
then,
brainwashed.
yeah, because he was, brainwashed, but then they got him out of it.
And they killed Chameleon, Mantis, guy.
Yes, who,
And
retard, threw away his invisibility cloak immediately. I was just like, why?
yeah,
That would have been great
yeah,
for a fight, you know? That had to use their brain. It's like, no, he just takes it off, and I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna knife fight you. Bring a knife fight to a Kamen Rider punch.
yeah, exactly. It's like, alrighty, buddy. I mean, you do you, I guess. But
And there's the whole thing with Hay, who was very interesting. I wish there was more to that. Like, he was there like at all the fights and was kind of following Kamen Rider
bro,
around and like just
bro was
observing.
basically Kamen Rider G-Man.
Yeah, he
Not gonna
was
lie.
straight up, you know. And it's like at first it's like, oh, is he doing Butterfly's bidding? And he didn't interfere at all. He just kind of watched, and he was only sad about Spider and the chameleon guy dying, which was really strange. He didn't care about the others, but those two got their little flowers in his pocket to commemorate them. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he was tasked with being the eyes and ears of the AI supercomputer that was implied to be just isolated somewhere, and he was like just doing like observations for him, but was like he was just letting all that happen. So I don't know what Ai's goals are with, would he want Kamen Rider stopped, or is he learning to like understand like, oh, there's more to
Yeah, there's
things.
a lot of question. There's a lot up in the air by the end of Shin
Mhm.
Kamen Rider, as opposed to the prior two entries, which are a bit more clear cut, even if they also leave a lot up in the air too. Um, yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? Um, right. I think that I don't know. It's interesting looking at the Shin series as a whole, considering who made them, right? My man,
Yes.
Hideaki Anno, the Evangelion man, as most people know him. Um, like considering I don't know, it's very like you watch the movies, and if you've seen Evangelion, if you've seen the rebuilds, or just any of his other work from before this, you're like, yeah, this is all it's very Anno,
Yes.
right? They're all very Anno works. And I think importantly, you really kind of see all the different kind of stages, I want to say, of Anno's life, right? If you
Mhm.
going back to Evangelion, right? Like Evangelion is a very, I mean, especially what you get towards the end, and like the end of the show, and then end of Evangelion, the movie, like very depressing, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
you watch Evangelion, and like if not only watch Evangelion, but you watch like interviews he did at around the time, after it really blew up, um, like this was a very pessimistic man who hated himself, right? He
Right.
said as much, right, at the time. Um, he just, obviously, if you get to the end of these of the show of Evangelion and the movie end of Evangelion, like there's a hopeful tone more so at the end of the actual show Evangelion than the movie, but for the most part, there are works that are rather pessimistic about
Mhm.
humanity, with only like a little bit of a kind of hopeful spark. Um, and I feel like Shin Godzilla reflects that aspect of that part of his life really well, right? Because Shin Godzilla is very, for so much of it, is very pessimistic about humanity.
Yeah.
He makes it very clear that Godzilla is our fault.
Yes.
It's humanity's fault. Collectively, whether it's American testing, nuclear testing, or just the illegal dumping by Japanese authorities of nuclear waste into um, Tokyo Bay, um, and a lot of you know um, the response, though mainly is a critique of the Japanese government. I think can also be considered part of this kind of just pessimism towards humanity, because the government isn't this nebulous force, this abstract nebulous force. It's made up of people. It's made
Yes.
up of human
Exactly.
beings. So it is a kind of like governments are a, a kind of reflection of humanity, right? As much as everyone hates their governments, it's like, well, that's a reflection of humanity as a whole. Like, I don't think many people can realistically say and genuinely say they would do any different than any of the other chuckle fucks in power, even if they would like to. Um, but again, ultimately, just like with Ava, there is ultimately a spark of hope there that saves the day. And more so in Shin Godzilla than in Ava, right? In
Hmm.
Ava, the world is basically ended. Shinji and Asuka are basically like the last two people alive. Definitely not the case in Shin Godzilla, right? It's definitely a more clear cut victory, definitely more hopeful. But still, I think it reflects that part of Anno's life more than any of the other entries, whereas um Shin Ultraman is kind of like a complete flip of that, right? Where it's incredibly positive with a tint of negativity, right? There is
Yeah.
still a kind of pessimism that humanity might not, have their shit fully together. But ultimately, it's still a really really hopeful movie. Um,
Yeah, and especially with showing Ultraman, he like Ultraman's journey of understanding humanity and like coming to,
yes,
love them and stuff. Because when he shows up, he crash lands, accidentally kills a guy who was trying to save, or who tried to save a kid from him crashing, and he's just like, I should like,
yeah,
I should study these people. I should understand them because it's a weird quirk. I
because he
haven't
doesn't
seen that before.
understand that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like selflessness or self-sacrifice.
yeah.
And then the whole
So,
journey of
so
him
from
like
the
coming,
start,
yeah, like right immediately, like with right from him landing, it's like, oh, okay, I've hurt this creature. I should, I mean, it's a bit of wanting to atone as well, whether he knows it or not, and like,
yeah. Well, I think more importantly though, like right from the beginning, what that shows is the optimism at the core of Shin Ultraman, which is that
yes,
like it really shows off like, okay, well, humans are like selfless, right? That's what Ultraman ultimately doesn't understand at the beginning, right? Is human selflessness.
mhm,
The fact that this tiny little being was willing to sacrifice himself for a even tinier little being.
yeah,
Um, which was incomprehensible to Ultraman. And if you pay attention to the rest of the movie, is really incomprehensible to like pretty much every other alien, right? So it actually kind of displays that trait as being a very uniquely human, special thing. Um, so yeah, Shin Ultraman really just has nothing but high regards for humanity. I mean, literally, they end with Sophie and Ultraman, where Sophie asks, are you have you become so fond of humans, right? And Ultraman's like, yeah,
Yeah,
dude. Like,
yeah.
he's literally willing to die for humanity. Literally some Christ-like shit, which
Mhm.
um given um um the fact that Eiji Tsuburaya, the founder of Tsuburaya Productions and creator of Ultraman, was a Catholic, I think is just a very fitting move to make. I think he would have appreciated that were he still
Yes, he
around
would
today.
have. Yeah, and
Um,
to make it a little more concrete, because I looked into it a little bit because obviously I didn't see the old Ultraman stuff and how, at least wasn't it the original series that ended very similarly,
yes, the whole
but
movie is
Ult
basically just kind of
yeah, like kind of a, you know,
the original series condensed.
yes, but didn't, or I at least saw that Ultraman at least got to kind of live again
Yeah,
after the
yeah. So
ending.
they in the original series they pull some BS where Ultraman's like, yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for Hayata. And Sophie's just like, well, luckily for you, I brought 2 extra lives, so you both get to live. It's like, okay, sure thing, buddy. Which and
Yeah,
it's cool because it means the original Ultraman gets to show up in later entries that take place in the same continuity.
yeah.
But it does also like when you get to it, you're like, okay, that's kind of an ass pull.
Yeah, and to be expected with TV shows and things like that. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
we gotta leave some stuff open ended if we want to continue the franchise and things. It's like
yeah,
I get it sometimes, but this one had a nice like bittersweet, I guess. Like concrete
yeah. It
ending. Like
was
no,
very
he
much
concretely
he's
gives his
gone.
life for humanity. Like
Yeah, no extra lives bullshit. Like, no, he's
mhm.
gone. That's it. And then, which so yeah, I think that's very evocative of kind of later stage Anno, right? If you've seen the rebuild of Evangelion movies, which are so much more hopeful than the original series.
Yes,
Um, it's yeah, it's very like, wow, like the same dude made these. If you watch them, you're like, wow, hey, good for him,
yeah. No,
right?
it's
Good for
very good
him.
that he got to
He
make
got
them
he
at a
got white
better
pilled.
time in his life, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
learned a lot over the decades, and like I
yeah.
gotta you know gotta retell this story. But now that I'm at a better place, I could probably do it a bit better.
Now that I have a wife who I love dearly.
Yes, who I will put into this
Who-
series. Make it very obvious that
um,
it's my.
um, um, but I think the Shin Kamen Rider is interesting because it's somewhere in between. It's
Okay.
not as pessimistic as Shin Godzilla or Eva, the original series and movie, but not as white pilled, not as bloomer as Shin Ultraman or the rebuilds. It's very much somewhere in between. I think somewhere more realistic. I get the feeling that this is Anu, as an old man, right? This is where he is
Mhm.
as an old man. He's probably not as white pilled as he was when he made the rebuilds. And in fairness, um, the world's kind of gone to shit since then, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
like very much so. So it's still so yeah. Hence the many incredibly relevant themes in it, as I was mentioning with the bat guy
yeah,
wanting to kill everyone with a virus, and the wasp lady wanting to turn everyone into like a soulless hive mind, and then Butterfly wanting to upload everyone's consciousness into a, you know,
Yeah.
techno
I mean, the whole
utopia, whatever.
yeah,
And it's like,
Shocker is literally ran by two AI, I and K.
yeah,
So there's the kind of, I mean, we're definitely feeling that AI anxiety right now.
it's
Um, Justifiably so. So yeah, there's a lot of very relevant, yeah, like you were saying, relevant themes in Shin Kamen Rider. A lot of relevant things touched upon, ideas. But yeah, like I was saying, it's ultimately kind of somewhere in between the hopefulness of Shin Ultraman and the rebuilds and the original Eva and Shin Godzilla. It's somewhere more realistic. It's still idealistic,
mhm.
but it's able to acknowledge, like fucked up things happen, and you kind of just gotta overcome that. You got to deal with that, which is a theme I think throughout
Yeah,
all of
with
Anno's big works.
oh yeah,
But I think in
definitely.
Shin Kamen Rider, it's much more visceral,
Yeah,
um,
like with
and it
our
feels
um
informed.
with the main common writer of his, we mentioned it before, with his dad being killed in a police standoff or whatever, and then the girl who you know helps him throughout, Ruriko. Uh, Similarly, her dad gets killed, and but then she also has to, like, her. It shows it's the duality of her and her brother, of how they handle that issue, trauma, whatever. The brother just goes right into, like, yep, everyone just gets uploaded. No one's allowed to be sad anymore, like, whatever. Whereas she
Yeah,
comes
yeah. The
to,
brother's whole plan is basically instrumentality, right?
yes, yeah, yeah,
He doesn't he fears kind of human individuality because that can lead to things like what happened to his mother, right? Who
yes,
was killed by just randomly by some random fucking psycho.
yeah,
And so with this kind of what they call it, the habitat project, um, which again is basically human instrumentality from Ava. And the idea is that there's no secrets. These kinds, there's no bodies, there's no death, so none of these bad things can happen just at all. Um, but of course, what Ruriko, the sister, comes to realize, and of course, Kamen Rider himself, is that like, well, you can't, like, a life without a body, a life without kind of individuality, um, without your own thoughts, your own private thoughts, is not a life, right? You're not really living. You're not really human at that point. That's what kind of makes the experience of being a living human being, and without that, you're just not, right? You might as well not exist.
yeah, right.
Um,
And kind of on this, because I mentioned them earlier that I wrote them down, and actually now might be a good spot to mention the little quotes. Well, Ultraman and Kamen Rider, I'm sure there might be something similar in Godzilla, but it also shows the state, like what you were saying, the state of Anno, like where he was way more hopeful with Ultraman, and then Kamen Rider is like a bit of a middle ground, more realists than total, like, optimism. Because, like, in Ultraman, one of the characters says, "Despair weakens the spirit. It feels better to have hope." Pretty straightforward. But then in
yeah,
Kamen Rider, "My father lived with hope, but always found despair." So it's just like, not everyone will, you know, get that happy ending. That, like, you could still have all the hope you want, and This is the real world. It's not gonna, you know, sometimes it just
Yeah,
doesn't work out,
yeah,
type of thing.
yeah. Kamen Rider acknowledges that like you can't always be this hope-pilled bloomer. All like you just can't always be that. Like as much
Yeah,
as you may want to be, like sometimes life just sucks.
yeah,
You know, and people don't always get you know good, what they deserve. People, you could be a good person living your life completely right, and some psycho could just butcher you
yeah, exactly.
in this on the street randomly. And like, how is that fair? How is that not kind of despair-inducing that that can just happen to someone
Yeah,
who just did not do anything to even to warrant that in the slightest because some psycho was roaming the streets.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so it just acknowledges that reality. Um, but in a way that's again, it's still ultimately like, all right, you got it. Like, yeah, this is the world we live in. It can blow, it can suck, it can be really lonely too. I think that's another aspect of the Shin Kamen Rider movie that's very interesting. Is it is a very lonely feeling movie. Um, there's not as many like extras or people just kind of walking around as in the prior two.
right, yeah,
Which has a lot of people, mainly because they're these bigger kind of disaster films. Um, Not even just talking about probably a lack of budget that Shin Kamen Rider had for that. Um, but I think that helps kind of sell the relationship that Kamen Rider and Ruriko form,
mhm,
right? Because they're in this lonely world and they're two very clearly lonely characters. Kamen Rider talks about how he like just kind of fucks off on his bike all the time and goes camping by himself, right?
yeah,
Um, he's clearly self-isolated a lot since the death of his father. Um, and Ruriko is like Ruriko is basically like she's basically Kamen Rider's Ray.
right,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
exactly.
she's literally this like biomechanical like computer organism, who like very clearly was raised to be this like robotic, not emotional being.
Mhm,
And it
yeah,
wasn't until much later that her father was like, tried to kind of teach her about human emotions and then Common Writer as well. So it helps that you have these really two lonely, kind of awkward people who aren't really that in touch with their emotions. The whole vibe of the movie helps sell their connection better than it otherwise would have if it was a more normal movie,
right,
just
yeah.
because of the run length, right? Um,
And it's
so
interesting with it is a little limited because of it just being like a one-off movie or whatever. With having the second Common Rider, Hayato uh, thing, because I could see where it was going with that of how where Hongo, our main Common Rider, was at when he encountered second Common Rider, of like he was learning, he was getting along with Ruriko, and they're working with the blowies or whatever. But then when he met this new guy who was just like him, basically, like guy's like, I like to work alone, I need to, that's it. Like after they break the mind control and they kind of talk a little, it's just like, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna do my own thing, like whatever, you go fight Shocker, I don't care. That would have made more sense in a series, because then he could have like fucked off for like a long time and then showed up at like a super pivotal moment.
and then
Whereas the
come back.
movie, it's like
Yeah,
within like 20, like 15 minutes, they're
yeah,
fighting together, like against Shocker, and it's like, when I see what they were doing with that is like to show like, oh, this is how I've been, is like, I've been closed off and isolating myself, and then but I've grown, so it's like, oh, okay, so maybe he will grow as well, maybe he'll learn something.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
will
It just kind
inspire
of
him to
rushed
be.
that.
Yeah, like that went a little too quick, but again, yeah, I understand it's a movie. There's either you cut that all out entirely and don't have, you know, a successor set up, but it's like, no, it's that leaves again a little more hopeful ending of like the common rider mantle will go on, the fight
Yeah,
continues, you know,
there's still Kamen Rider
you know,
out there.
yeah, because that was again where it went a little more sad and bleak when Common Rider, you know, they win against Butterfly, but Kamen Rider dies, and then second Kamen Rider just says, "Oh, I'm alone again," and then he leaves. You know, like he wanders off. You know, it's like, damn.
Honestly, thinking about it, I am interested in. I don't know if he'd have it in him, if he has the energy, but like, I mean, he clearly killed it with, and I also know he has a his true love is cinema. I get that.
Mhm.
But I do think it would be interesting that I don't know if he's done any other series besides Ava, but I would be interested in seeing him do maybe his own Kamen Rider show or Ultraman show or something, right? I think that would be
Yeah,
interesting
yeah, that would be
because
to
I
let
think,
him flesh things out more. You know.
yeah, because he when you give that man the ability to do long form storytelling, as Ava shows us, he can do some pretty incredible stuff.
Mhm.
I think his ideas tend to kind of run off the page when he comes to movies, which might be why people don't like the rebuilds as much, myself included, frankly. Um, maybe they would have a better reception if it had been a rebuild show, a series,
Right. Yeah.
right? And the ideas and concepts and characters had more time to breathe than they did in just four movies.
Yeah. Nah, it makes me. It does make me curious of what he'll even do next. You know, like, if he'll do another movie, if he'll do more anime of like, who knows, or maybe he's just done. We don't, you know, haven't heard. That's one thing I don't hear of as much is like, over here in the West, you just like, oh, endless announcements of movies and shows and everything. But over there, sometimes you just don't hear of it, and then it's like, oh, it's coming out in like 6 months. Like, oh, this thing they've been working on. It's like, oh, okay. So like whether they'll drop something or hand them another series. Oh, you've done Peak 3 times in a row with these. Here's another famous Japanese IP to give him a Gamera movie or something. That'd be fucking.
Give him, yeah.
That'd be. Oh, peak.
I wonder what he would do with Gamera. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there that it's just like, huh, what? Well, what would Hideaki Anno do with this?
After having watched it a couple weeks ago, uh, give him H.O.C.K.E.R. That'd be so. Seeing that with not a $2 budget would be so peak.
Would be pretty insane. Yeah. I need to watch his in the 2000s he actually did a live action Cutie Honey adaptation of all fucking things. I haven't seen that, but I'm interested because like, it's honest. It's like, what did that's arguably as far as I'm aware the first like adaptation of a popular classic Japanese work that he ever did. So that would be interesting. Like, just to see like what was he cooking all the way back in like 2003 or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think kind of, yeah, the Shin series has been really fascinating. I don't know if it's like over or what. I don't know if there's gonna be any more Shin anything, or if it's just over with Kamen Rider since there's been obviously decreasing budgets, decreasing profits to go with that. Um, I would hope it goes on. I hope there's he does more with more stuff. But I think ultimately what we got now is pretty solid too.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't be upset if this is where it ended because I think he's doing with the exception of Godzilla, which already had a pretty profound themes, right, with its original movie.
yeah,
Um Ultraman, again, they a lot of the themes he explored in these movies are kind of already in the original Ultraman and Kamen Rider. But like, let's be honest, those were kid shows.
yeah,
They were kid shows made for kids. They weren't really supposed to be all that deep, and that's fine,
yeah.
right? That's sometimes you just want to watch heroes kicking ass, right? That's
Mhm.
it. There doesn't have to be like these big themes and ideas. I mean, these are very episodic shows too, right? Just kind of monster villain of the week, just kind of fighting whoever for whatever reason, um, just for the hell of it. But I appreciate Anno kind of showing that you can do more with these classic characters from these classic shows. Um, that not that he's been the first too. I mean, later Kamen Rider series, later Ultraman series have definitely gotten a bit more nitty gritty with the themes and the struggles of Ultraman, of the various Ultramen and the various Kamen Riders. Um, but these are very big, high-profile movies by a big name. So I think these movies really kind of um, both to audiences outside of Japan and maybe more normie audiences in Japan kind of showed these can be more than just kid shit, right? These Ultraman can be deeper than the original 60s show. Kamen Rider can be deeper than the original 70s show. It doesn't have to just be kid shit. And especially that these nuggets were of thematic depth were always kind of there too. I think is important because I think that's why they were always so beloved, right? Yes, they were just kid shows, monster villain of the week, but there were these nuggets in there of something more. Um, as shown by the fact that a lot of these plot points and characters and details are just ripped one for one from the original shows.
Right, yeah,
Um, he just kind of fleshes them out a bit and in kind of different ways. Um, goes to show that dudes dudes in rubber suits fighting monsters or other dudes in rubber suits with weird powers or whatever the fuck. The Tokusatsu is a very valid form of storytelling,
yeah.
right?
And everyone, that yeah, there's so many tokusatsu titles and things, and it's nice to see them carried on. Like whether you're more into like Power Rangers or something, it's still whatever's going on over there. But there's still stuff that people love, and that stuff gets passed on and retold in interesting ways, as we see with the Shin movies, and also at the same time with them, just like that other animated Ultraman movie that came out last year. Like there's still like, oh, you can still do both. You can have your more like
Like kid
realistic,
friendly.
grim ones and your more kid friendly ones. You can still do your silly, animated films or the shows if there's still goes on with that.
Yeah,
And
there's still shows going on too that are obviously still largely intended for kids, but
yeah,
you know that's all right too. Um, I think I think the honestly one of the most exemplar kind of little I don't know if metaphor is the right word, but I'll go with it. Metaphor of the whole Shin series and really what uh, of the whole Shin series and how it represents these properties is kind of this idea in Shin Kamen Rider of the kind of the red scarf, right? Ruriko, kind of bringing it up as this kind of emblem of heroes, right? It's
Yeah,
heroes wear red or something, right? Is what she says. Uh, kind of how it's this thing that stems from when her dad, who was also into motorcycles and stuff, he would wear that red scarf around him, and she kind of grew up seeing this as like a symbol of heroism, kind of a subtle unspoken acknowledgement of her father, which is not something she really did up until the end throughout the movie. Um, and how it's kind of used as a symbol for passing on the torch, right? It goes
mhm.
from the father to Ruriko to Hongo and to Kamen Rider 2 by the end, right? As this kind of symbol of carrying on all of their wills ultimately by the end of
Yeah,
this desire to help people, protect people, and I think that really just kind of is emblematic of the whole project. And I think how Anno sees all of these properties, right? These are all these classic properties, but they all inspire people to be a bit better, right? To
yeah,
try to be little to try to do as much good as they can in people's lives, to try to be in their own ways heroes, right?
yeah,
Kind of
exactly.
pass on the torch that started all the way back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, um in a way that it leads to people like Ano, right? That's why he is this big name in the Japanese creative industry, right? Like, it all starts with his love for all these tokusatsu properties that he quite literally grew up watching as a small child, right?
Mhm.
He'll talk about watching this shit in like the fifth grade and all that jazz, and it's why he's where he is, and I'm sure it's why a lot of other people are where they are. Um, you know, you see that with, I mean, obviously not just Ano. You see that with a lot of Japanese creators. You see that with a lot of Western
Yeah,
creators. Not even just with Japanese properties, but like Western properties too. Guillermo del Toro.
yeah. Which I think we talked
Um,
about that in the last episode a bit of like his whole similar love for all the kaiju
the,
and tokusatsu stuff when he was younger, and
yeah,
you
but
know
as well as the classic Universal monsters,
yes,
right?
yeah, that direction as well.
Frankenstein, Creature of the Black Lagoon, to the point where I mean, he quite literally made his own Frankenstein movie recently, but
Yeah,
Shape of Water was basically his own weird retelling of Creature of the Black Lagoon,
yeah,
right? Like, all these years later, these stories made 50, 60, sometimes almost 100 years ago now. um the torch is still being passed on,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I think their hope is clearly that it'll continue to be passed on, with these new movies that they're all making, with all their ideas and work that
yeah.
they've pushed out
Which
there to the public consciousness, which I think is ultimately what kind of storytelling, and art is kind of all about.
yeah, it's passing down like important things, and like what you're saying there with Guillermo del Toro and Western ones. Like we got Robert Eggers as well. Like he's done his own things like Lighthouse and Vitch and stuff, but then he did Nosferatu. His Nosferatu, and it's like, oh shit,
Right, yeah.
like that's a pretty damn good retelling. And he's working on a werewolf movie now, so it's like everyone's got their little like things that they loved, things that inspired them. And it's like, oh, I can pass it on, put my view, my worldview, my hopes and dreams into it.
Yeah, I think that's just what it's all about. That's all I've got. I
Yeah,
think that's where we ought to leave it, right? Just
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of pass on the torch,
yeah.
do what you can to make a world a better and cooler place too.
Yes,
Make your
yeah,
own stuff,
yeah.
you know, do
Like
what you can.
tell your own stories, create your own art and all that stuff. You hear it plenty. And again, as we say sometimes, like, oh yeah, it does seem bleak. Like things are getting a little rough. With tech and AI
Don't even get me
and
started,
with
dude.
as we heard today of the potential buyout of Warner Brothers and shit of things getting nightmarish. Uh, you know, that's another
By
thing.
Netflix, whose CEO literally said, "Yeah,
Who needs cinemas? It's
movie theaters are kind of outdated." Yeah, it's like,
yeah, it's like
bro,
so like there's another thing. Go get physical media if you can. Please get as much as you possibly
yeah,
can. Go to thrift stores if you
yeah.
have to. Get those dollar DVDs and VHSs off the shelves. Save them before the Netflix police come and throw them into burn piles or some shit. You know, pass on the things you love. Stay
Yeah.
hopeful, but don't delude yourself either.
Yeah, yeah. Don't be a dumbass. Yeah, if that's the lesson of Kamen Rider, Shin Kamen Rider, especially, you know, don't don't give up, but also don't be a dumbass, right?
Yes. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
sometimes you just gotta pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this has been Layer One
Yes. We'll
signing
return
off.
again at some point. Take care, everyone.